Who's going to win the 2024 United States presidential election? If you just want my prediction is Donald Trump will win the 2024 presidential election. So I have a list of reasons why I think this result will happen over here. Let's start with the simplest one. The electoral map is bad for Kamala. So over here on the left, I have 538's predictions on each individual state. And over here, I have a sort of, you can click and choose which state, who wins which state. And in my estimation, Trump has a significantly easier path to victory. Now, for the record, I want to say I'm not a professional election analyzer. I have no secret knowledge that you don't have. I'm going off my personal vibe as someone who follows this stuff fairly closely. And I know 538 isn't the be-all end-all, but for the most part, their predictions here seem to align relatively well to where my head is. So first and foremost, let's get these out of the way. I don't think Kamala wins Georgia or North Carolina. 538 here has them at 62% of the time Trump wins North Carolina, 63% of the time Trump wins Georgia. The Democrats haven't won North Carolina since, I think, 2008 with Obama. And the 2020 win in Georgia was, I think an exception. For one, we are missing what we had in 2020, no universal mail-in ballots. So among many things done in 2020 to make voting easier for people during the pandemic, vote by mail was made significantly easier and was a lot more common in 2020. And the conventional thinking is that, easier access to voting, making voting more accessible for people tends to help Democrats. That being out of the picture, I think hurts Democrats. The other thing in Georgia was there were 2 Senate seats open as well. So the Democrats were putting a lot of effort to win in Georgia overall. That effort was not put in this year. They obviously did put in some amount of effort, not nearly the same amount of effort as in 2020. So for that, I think we immediately give Georgia and North Carolina to Donald Trump pretty easily, in my opinion. Now, suddenly, the map looks very, very, very favorable to Donald Trump. Trump now needs only 19 electoral college votes. So looking at the remaining states, what would be Trump's easiest path to 19 votes? That would be Pennsylvania. Boom. Done. 270 votes for Donald Trump. Nothing else would matter. Kamala could win Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin and still lose the election by 2 electoral college votes. So in my opinion, I'm not saying this is exactly what the map will look like. I think, honestly, Trump probably wins Arizona and Nevada. If he were to do that and Kamala Harris wins the blue wall, she would be president here with Trump. The result would be flipped from what I showed earlier. She would win 270, Trump would win 268. But again, she would have to win the entire blue wall. And maybe, something else could happen. Like she could win Pennsylvania, lose Michigan. And if she were to win Nevada and Arizona, she could still win. So looking at this, the lack of expanded access to mail-in ballots, this electoral map does not look great for Kamala Harris. Now let's look at 538's numbers for these states. So we looked at Georgia and North Carolina. Arizona, 538 is polling Arizona as worse than Georgia and North Carolina, which is kind of wild to me. 63 Trump in Georgia, 62 North Carolina for Trump. Arizona, 70% chance of winning Arizona, according to 538. Nevada, once again, leaning Trump, 53 to 47. It's only 6 electoral votes, so it kind of matters less than any of these other swing states. It could definitely matter, but kind of less than anything else. Iowa, I'm sorry, Ann Seltzer, I don't think Kamala wins Iowa. No matter what your poll said, that's not going to happen. 538 has Trump winning Iowa 94% of the time. So yeah, I don't think that will happen. I will eat this hat if that happens, okay? Wisconsin, they're saying 55 out of 100 Harris wins. Michigan, 56 out of 100 Harris wins. So let's say Harris wins those. I don't mind giving her that. Pennsylvania, they've got Trump winning 53% of the time. Now, this is truly a toss-up in my head. This could go either way, and I think that this is where the election will come down to. Who wins Pennsylvania wins the election. Like, again, Harris wins if Harris is losing an extra blue wall state, then she's not winning the election. I doubt she wins, Arizona but loses Michigan, or, loses Arizona but wins North Carolina or Georgia. Any of those weird things happen, Harris could win, but these are very low chances of happening. I don't think she wins, again, North Carolina while losing Wisconsin. So let's say it's roughly safe that what we're looking at here is what happens. Again, Nevada barely matters. It could be blue, it could be red, who cares? God, no, not California red. So Nevada, red, blue, doesn't super matter. It'll really come down to Pennsylvania, which again, I don't know if it's going to go blue. I don't know if it's going to go red. My gut is saying it goes red. And my gut wouldn't be surprised if the blue wall falls. This is for a number of reasons. Like, I would not be surprised if this is the electoral map for Trump. And again, the polling is within a margin of error. This could be a Kamala blowout any day of the week. I'm saying like my 55% of the time I think this happens versus 45% I think Kamala win happens. But one of the other reasons I think Trump wins is people forgot how bad Trump's presidency was. Now, obviously, Donald Trump lost in 2020. He lost fairly big. Let's take a look. This isn't right. So this is the 2020 Electoral College map. Biden won the blue wall. He won Georgia, and he won those other swing states, Nevada and Arizona. North Carolina wasn't really in play at the time. I still, honestly, don't really think it's in play. If she wins it, great. That's fine. I'm saying, again, from what I'm seeing, the vibe I'm feeling, I don't think she wins it. It might be close. She might, be a few more points higher than, Biden losing it, but I don't think she wins it. But this was a pretty big electoral college victory. It was 306 to 232. No matter what, this election, I think, is going to be significantly closer. But yeah, the reality is people have goldfish memories. The Trump presidency started almost 8 years ago at this point. Americans rallied to remove Trump from office, but that was a number of years ago now. That was 4 fucking years ago now. That is a lifetime in the mind of the average voter. So a lot of the dysfunction, a lot of the problems that people noticed from the Trump presidency, a lot of people have forgotten that. Not everyone has, but significant amounts of people definitely have. And it didn't help that the Biden presidency did not message its wins very well. Republicans, I talk about this all the time, Republicans have a very easy job with messaging. They can just lie outright and their audience will believe it, with impunity. The Democrats don't quite have as much of a luxury in that regard. So the conservative media apparatus has done, I think, an excellent job at painting Biden as terrible, his presidency as terrible. I mean, as a progressive, a leftist or whatever, I have a lot of criticisms for Biden's presidency, but they generally aren't the same criticisms, quote unquote, that conservative media has over Biden and his presidency. So yeah, Biden's approval rating is very low. Again, conservative media is just huge. It's 1,000 times bigger than like liberal media, let alone progressive media or left-wing media is in the United States, which are nothing. Our most liberal media is like center-right. Then obviously the rest of it, the majority of it is, right-wing to far-right. Or like right-wing adjacent. Like I would include like Joe Rogan, like the number one voice for especially men in America and all around the world is fairly right-wing at this point. So yeah, right-wing media has done an excellent job at making people think that the Democrats have not been doing a very good job. Again, for kind of the wrong reasons, but they've done a good job at polluting the mind of the average American voter, I think. And that sort of leads into my next point. Kamala has run a pretty poor campaign. Now, again, I don't know if she's going to win Wisconsin. It's a very rural state. I know it's part of the blue wall, but who knows where, tides are going for Democratic voters. Maybe Wisconsin is more purple than people think. Who knows? Florida was purple. Now it's very hardline red. With Michigan, they have a pretty big Muslim population. Kamala Harris's lack of, giving, say, Palestinians a voice, lack of addressing Israel's ongoing genocide against the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza. A lot of Muslim voters are not exactly happy with Kamala Harris and the Democrats in that regard. Now, I think it's absurd to think Trump or Republicans would be any better on foreign policy than the Democrats. It's sort of a uniparty thing in that regard. I do think the Republicans would be significantly worse. And I understand, it's hard to get worse from literal genocide, but I think it could get worse. But anyway, Kamala has done a pretty good job at alienating a fairly large amount of people. Not, I'm sure her numbers show court people in the center, court Republicans who don't like Trump rather than courting, Muslims or more progressive people. A lot of progressive people are voting for, Green Party. Some are voting for PSL or just third party in general, or just not voting at all. Now, again, I know progressives are a fairly small amount of people in the United States, but to just completely and utterly shut them out, not let them have a seat at the table at all, is a bit of a shock to me. Honestly, a bit of a shock. Like, she's saying, I'm going to have a Republican in my administration, but not even remotely give progressives or like a voice for Palestinians any sort of acknowledgement in her campaign has been pretty wild. And I think this could have a real tangible effect on the election. I'm looking at some numbers here. Hillary Clinton lost Pennsylvania by like 44,000 votes. Jill Stein got about 50,000 votes in Pennsylvania in 2016. In Michigan, Hillary Clinton lost Michigan by about 11,000 votes, it looks like. Jill Stein got 51,000 votes in Michigan. Clinton lost Wisconsin by 23,000 votes, and Jill Stein got 31,000 votes in Wisconsin. Now, this does ignore the Libertarian Party candidate, Gary Johnson, who got more votes for him than Jill Stein got. So whether Jill Stein, stole the election from Hillary Clinton, I don't want to play that game. Hillary Clinton ran a terrible campaign herself, but I think this does, matter to some degree. I think we will see a lot of people who probably would be more ideologically closer to Kamala than Donald Trump, but who are going to vote for third party because of various reasons, namely, again, Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza. But again, all that aside, if you're just looking at the issues, if you're just looking at objective reality, I think it should be an absolute, complete and utter no-brainer that anyone with a reasonably functioning brain should vote for whoever is the most viable candidate opposite of Donald Trump in this upcoming election. In this case, it's Kamala Harris. That is who I'm voting for. I don't live in a swing state, but that is who I'm voting for. That is who I urge people to vote for. Yes, even progressives, even leftists, I think in this election, we should vote for Kamala Harris. I want to point to this tweet from Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report. Pragmatism on election day, unabashed progressivism on every other day. We vote for our weakest opponent and go back to work the day after. Doesn't feel that complicated to me. And this is where my head's at. I am no fan of Kamala Harris. I do think she will probably continue the genocide in Gaza, but I don't think helping Donald Trump get elected, which voting third party ultimately does, is going to end the genocide in Gaza any quicker. And honestly, I think maybe Kamala Harris is someone who progressives maybe can push to do something good. Donald Trump will never do anything good. That is just the reality. Everything Trump is going to do domestically or in foreign policy is going to be objectively bad. The Democrats are more like 3 steps forward, 3 steps back, status quo, which is bad, especially when, the modern conservative movement has been ratcheting things significantly rightward, making things a lot worse. The Democrats, I can't really trust to make things better, but I can trust to generally not make things much worse. And again, maybe there's a chance that Kamala is someone who we can push to some degree to do something good. Trump, I just know objectively, he cannot be pushed to do anything good, especially in regards to foreign policy or Gaza. He's talked about he wants to encourage Israel to finish the job. A lot of his actions he did as president were what sort of, escalated the tensions that led to the current genocide in Gaza. So I don't think helping Trump get elected solves any of the problems progressives and leftists want to solve. I don't think a protest vote will teach the Democrats any sort of lesson. I think the best thing we can do in terms of, electoral politics is vote for the left most viable option in every election. That includes primaries. Vote for the left most viable option in the primaries. Vote for the progressive in the primaries. And then, again, pragmatism on election day. But I get the leftists will say like, well, we do this and then people grow complacent. We shouldn't do that. We should continue to, organize and do everything leftists want to do every other day. But pragmatism on election day does make sense to me, especially in this election when some of the stuff Trump is saying he's going to do, some of the stuff they want to do, Project 2025, fucking RFK is talking about removing fluoride from our water. This is absolute fucking unmitigated insanity, and we cannot let this fucking piece of shit run our government again, okay? It is what it is. Fuck Kamala Harris, fuck the Democrats, but man, there are levels to this shit. I'm now turning this into a tirade on why progressives and leftists should vote for Kamala Harris. I didn't want this to be that. I haven't even gotten to my final point. My final point as to why I think Donald Trump is going to win this election does relate to all of my other points, but my final point is Americans are fucking stupid. This really could have just said people are stupid, because everyone in the world is stupid, including myself. We're all too fucking stupid, but Americans are in the world. And so Americans are stupid. I do believe in democracy in our government, but I think people need to be smarter, better at critical thinking, better at information dissemination, better at not falling for propaganda, and we're just not there yet. The overwhelming majority of voters, both for Democrats, obviously every Republican, are not particularly well informed of the issues. They're not thinking about these things critically, and I think that is a massive fucking problem. And before we go like, you're alienating half the country by calling them stupid, no. I am calling all of us fucking stupid, including myself. I just said that. I'll say it again. We're all stupid. Every single one of us. But there are levels to this. Like I said earlier, there are degrees. On a curve, Republican voters are just significantly worse and dumber than the average Democrat voter. I'm just going to fucking say it. There is no belief that the modern conservative movement prescribes to that holds up to any sort of scrutiny. Not one. Not a single fucking one. With like Democrats, it's more, 50-50, 30-70 when you get to like centrist Democrats. But at least the Democratic Party is like okay on social issues at this point. On economic issues, they'll at least like throw a bone to like understanding that like, income inequality, wealth inequality is a problem that needs to be addressed through, regulation to some degree. Ultimately, both parties themselves are neoliberal. Both sets of voters are voting for neoliberalism, but some Democrats are better, I guess. But yeah, Americans are stupid. If they weren't, this election would not be close. For one, Kamala wouldn't even be the nominee. We'd be trying to elect someone closer to like a Bernie Sanders or something at like absolute worst. You know what I mean? Again, Republicans are way worse at this. They'll fall for fucking anything. You just have to say, immigrants are the problem, trans people are the problem, and all these fucking idiots are going to eat it up. So anyway, to recap, I think North Carolina, Georgia are a given. Nevada barely matters. Arizona, I think, ultimately goes to Trump too. Harris then, again, has to win the entire blue wall in order to break 270 to Trump's 268. And I would not be surprised if one of these fell, especially Pennsylvania. So I wouldn't be surprised if, let's go with this. This can be my final election map. Maybe Nevada flips. Maybe it looks like this. Anyway, what do you think? Who do you think is going to win? Right now, it feels like all the momentum is on Kamala's side. 538 still, as of today, November 3rd at 7 p.m., has Trump winning 53 times out of 100 to Kamala Harris's 46, with, no winner in some of these simulations. Because that could technically happen. Let's see, how do we get to 269? So if this happens, Kamala wins Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. Trump wins the blue wall and Nevada. We're tied, in which case I think Trump would end up becoming the president, but this isn't going to happen. My final prediction, let's say, that was right. My final prediction, let's say, looks like this. What do you think? Is this momentum real? Did Ann Seltzer predict Blexus? Florida? Is it going to be a blowout? Who knows? But let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching.